next question from Mark on budget and national debt.
Yeah, Tom, I think we should get an answer to the previous question about whether you think government stimulus programs work, and if we can do it quickly, then we can get to the next question. Go ahead, Congressman Walz.
Actually, let's go Alan Quist.
Do federal stimulus programs work? Not very well. The way you get the economy going, as I said, is to remove the impediments from free enterprise. That's the Affordable Care Act. It is regulations that are strangling the industries. It's higher than necessary energy costs, which cap and trade exacerbates by a factor of at least 10. It's those kinds of things. Do we believe in free enterprise or don't we? That's the question. Yeah. Tim Walz says that the Affordable Care Act is going to save us money. Give me a break. I hope he looked at the last CBO estimates on the added cost. $1.7 trillion added cost over the next 10 years. Let's have accurate information out here. Where are we going to get that money? It's all going to go on the deficit. We can't afford it. How many of you think we should keep spending money we don't have? Raise your hand. I don't see any hands. End of argument.
Yes, they work if they're targeted correctly, and they work in things like infrastructure projects. We put in tax rebates. The stimulus was 30% of it was reduction in taxes. The real problem in our economy, and many of you know this, is you can build a great product and you can work incredibly hard, but if there's no consumers to buy it, it's aggregate demand that shrunk in this country. 80% of this economy is fueled on consumer spending, and when the middle class sees it shrink because of a lack of safeguards on Wall Street that collapse that, we all believe in the free market. We all believe in making sure free enterprise work, but it must be fair. When the system was gamed, it took away from that. We can be smart about it, and infrastructure spending is a great example.
Okay, back to the original question.
You know, let's follow the rules of the road here. You do get a 30 seconds, Alan Quist.
30 seconds reply. Yeah. Well, and smart investments, okay? Let's look at some smart investments. When I go to the Twin Cities, I drive by the old facility of Excelsior Henderson motorcycles, okay? Smart investment by the state of Minnesota? I don't think so. Went bankrupt before, I mean, what did they do? Produce 10 motorcycles? How about Solyndra? Smart investments, okay? Politicians don't look at the world as the same way that business people do. They look at political advantage, not creating jobs.
Okay, we're going to move on to agriculture. Eric?
The Farm Bill is still languishing in the House of Representatives, where GOP leaders have refused to allow it to come to the floor for a full vote. The current Farm Bill will expire September 30th. What will be the short-term and long-term consequences of allowing this to happen, both for Americans who receive food stamps, which consume 80% of Farm Bill funding, and for the agricultural industry and the national economy?
Well, the first consequence of it creates uncertainty. It's absolutely uncalled for. It's a partisan piece of legislation by folks who are extremists in their position. You can talk all you want about a word salad of liberty and free enterprise. How are you going to make that work? How are you going to put it into perspective? How are you going to make sure that this country is able to feed its people to be able to export and create markets? The Farm Bill has created certainty. The Farm Bill that I helped write in 2008 has created the strongest farm economy and the strongest safety net that we've seen in this country. We worked that through. It passed the Senate. Nothing passed the Senate. They couldn't agree. It's Thursday over there. But it passed in a bipartisan manner. We passed it in the House of Representatives 35-11 by saving $36 billion. Streamlining programs, making sure we're not paying people not to grow crops, making sure we're putting it into a free market system of crop insurance. And that was agreed upon. But we have a group of extremists. Alan says he wants to join them, the Republican Study Commission, with Michelle Bachmann, with Todd Aiken, with those folks who say, no, let's go next year and let's get our way to do it and nobody else. That's what creates the problems. And what's going to happen is no sign-ups for CRP starting tomorrow, and you're not going to get the certainty on loans for people planting.
All right, thank you.
Well, the first question I need to ask here is, are we going to have name-calling be part of this debate? When Mr. Walz comes to terms, when Mr. Walz uses the word extremist, we now are in the field of name-calling, not genuine debate. I am going to ask that we have genuine debate and use civil language, okay? Now, I don't think fantasy is name-calling, because what Tim Walz is saying here is fantasy. I am a farmer. He says farmers can't plant for the next year without the Farm Bill. What a joke.
All right, thank you very much. 30 seconds.
First of all, you can plant with $600,000 in federal assistance that help plant that. And secondly, Alan, we're going to set this very clear. Alan has a quote that said, terrorists, yes, that's a problem. but the real problem is Tim Walz as the radicals. I didn't serve this country in uniform for 24 years to be compared to a terrorist in this name calling. You have a history, Alan, of 30 years of the victimization. You can't even unify an endorsing convention. Arnie Carlson and Vin Weber talk about this. Using the term extremism when the positions fall outside the edge is not like calling a soldier a terrorist. Let's leave it at that.
I also want to remind you that you also have an opportunity to ask questions of our candidates here. If you have a question, you can write it down on a piece of paper. I believe you have some paper in front of you, or find a piece of paper, hold it up, and Ryan will take it from you. So you are welcome to ask questions as well. Our next one comes from Mark, and this will be on budget and national debt.
And the question is, what's a more important priority for you, getting taxes down or getting the deficit down?
Okay, well, first 10 seconds. Everything Tim Walz just said was personal attack. Had nothing to do with issues. I'm going to suggest that personal attack is not on the table here. But if he wants to make an issue of something I said 30 years ago, then his arrest for drunk driving 17 years ago is an issue too. Okay? I don't want any of this stuff on the table. Let's wipe it off the table and let's talk issues. All right? So, balancing the budget is priority one. The 900-pound gorilla in the room is out of control spending. We're adding over $1 trillion each year to the deficit. In 2 years, 25 cents out of every dollar we collect is going to go for interest. This is financial irresponsibility on steroids. Okay? Mr. Walz, like him or not, is right in the middle of the big spending club.
All right, thank you very much, Congressman.
The solution, Mark, is a balanced approach to this. This nation has faced down difficult times. The idea of the all or nothing on this, Alan talks about, has no faith in the American public, that we're worse than Greece and its collapse. No, we're not. We have the American spirit to deal with this. We had irresponsible loss of jobs at the corner, about 800,000 a month when President Obama took office. The day he took office, we had $1 trillion deficit. Now, with that being said, we have a responsibility to move forward. I voted for $2 trillion in cuts, and I asked for 4 in the compromise on this in the Budget Reconciliation Act. So trying to get a compromise on this, but to get to that balanced approach, you've
right.
got to have everybody on board.
Thank you. Ryan, we have a question over here as well. 30-second rebuttal.
Did I get a 30 seconds?
I'm saying 30-second rebuttal. I'm just also mentioning to Ryan, we have questions. Raise your question now.
Keep in mind, you have to translate what politicians say. Tim Walz says balanced approach. What that means is higher taxes. Okay, do you really want to raise taxes when you've got a growth rate of 1.3%? What you're going to do is you're going to put cold water on the little economic growth that we have, very possibly throw us back into recession. Is that good planning? I don't think so. By the way, I know something about economic management. I've been in the private sector a good share of my life. That is my forte, and I can bring a lot to the table there on that score.
All right, Julie.
Yes, the federal government subsidizes both traditional fossil fuels as well as alternative energy. Do you support these energy subsidies for all, none, or just some of these energy resources?
I believe the congressman is next.
Yes, I have a bill that the Heritage Foundation actually said was the only bipartisan piece of legislation dealing with energy in Congress. It's a bipartisan energy bill of 24 of us, 12 Republicans and 12 Democrats, that takes the approach that this country's way out of this. And make no mistake about it, we spend $1 billion a day for oil to foreign countries that hate us. They'll hate us for free. We can invest here, making sure we use all of the above. This intensifies using our domestic production. We can do so in a responsible manner, making sure we're incentivizing research into all of the other possibilities there, including nuclear power. You're not going to get there without it. It has to be part of the mix. Turn this nation's ability to go forward and to unleash the lion, as Alan said. The problem is the lions are penned up when you have programs that subsidize, over-subsidize oil and traditional things, then not making sure that you can enter other things into the market. So yes, I do believe we can do this. Yes, I see we do a return on this, but we have a proposal that won't let us move away from the traditional fuels because they have a stranglehold on what's there. We can do better than this. We can move towards energy independence. It'll pull us out of those conflicts in the Middle East and give us economic security.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, contrary to what you've just heard, we have totally different approaches on energy. I don't think oil companies need subsidies. I think energy producers need the freedom to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. I think that means opening up the continental shelf. I think that means opening up Anwar. I think that means simply open and free competition. The killer to this is cap and trade, which Tim Walz loves and voted for. Heritage Foundation said that costs the average family $6,800 a year.
All right, 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, and again, I think some statements are not off limits when they're there. Alan made this statement about me. He says, Tim says we need to make wise investments. We need to invest in infrastructure and science, whatever that is. I don't know how you define that. I think that's fantasy land. I would suggest Alan go to the Mayo Clinic. I would suggest he go to some of these folks out there who are doing energy research that are moving forward. And when you bring in ideology, keep in mind, none of what Alan says he's going to do will ever happen if he can't get 217 other people to agree with him. Part of this job is the ability to bring that. I've done that, and I have a bipartisan bill that's ready to move.
Congressman, thank you. Question now from a member of our audience. If you are elected, what are 2 things you will do for the people of the 1st Congressional District? Please be specific. Give us your plans. And he or she says, thank you.
Well, wonderful question. By the way, I've had that question a number of times as I'm in parades, and I want you to know what my answer is. My answer is, and this is the reason that I'm here, is that I will do everything I can within my power to do what is necessary to ensure that you remain in a country where you are free. The bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is continuing to be free. The second thing I'm committed to is balancing the budget, because the national debt is a huge threat to the economic viability of the country. And anything that threatens our economic viability threatens our freedom. It's a threat to Social Security, it's a threat to Medicare, it's a threat to veterans benefits, it's a huge threat to national security, okay? We have to get our financial house in order. That is my forte. I don't think that's even on Mr. Walz's table. By the way, keep in mind, he ran on a platform of cutting spending. How's that working for you guys?
Mr. Quist, thank you. Mr. Walz.
We've done it. I think many of you know what the issue here is we are at an all-time, as we call the deficit raise. We saw the reckless practices that took us down a road where our spending outpaced where we were on revenues. This country has always had a balance of about 19% revenue, 19% spending. And what that enables us to do is to invest in those things that grow the economy. Alan talks about he's going to fight for your freedom. I put on the uniform and actually did it for 24 years, Alan. That's a way to make sure you protect freedom instead of saying it that it's out here. The other thing I'm going to do is make sure that we have a balanced approach that grows and what the people want to have done. I've made sure that when these veterans come back home from this war, this nation's here to say thank you in more ways than one.
30-second rebuttal.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, part of my job here is to correct the false information that Tim Walz puts on the table. He just said that we as a country are raising and spending about 19% of our GDP. Guess again. Just guess again. That's what he said.
I said historically.
All right.
Hey, I get 10 seconds more.
Keep talking.
Right now, the federal government is spending 24% of our GDP. We can't afford that. We have to get back to that 18 to 19% range, okay? We have to get back there. This guy
Alan,
is a
thank you
kid
very much.
with a credit card.
And you will have 2 minutes at the end for closing statements. You can say whatever you want to say.